Have you ever found yourself in a relationship and thought, wait, is this normal? Or maybe you've wondered, are they a narcissist? Karen Maldonado and Tyler King are talking about the red flags, the manipulation, the things we'd wished we'd seen sooner, and what it looks like to find truth, healing, and hope on the other side. So take us along for your drive, your walk, or your morning run, and let's talk about it. Welcome to Narcissist and Asking for a Friend.
We have such a treat for you today because we're talking about why narcissists hate boundaries. And Karen, you have talked to so many clients, in the past and people that you're working with now about narcissistic relationships and the different boundaries they try to cross. Like, just giving an example, like maybe you share something that you're not happy with or pleased with that they're doing, and then it just becomes an attack, and it's like they kind of throw it back on you to make it seem like, well, what are you talking about? And then they try to flip something and say something negative that you're doing that's maybe not even true. It could be exaggerated. So Karen, what can a person do when they're in those type of relationships where they can't even feel like they can disclose or share anything with the significant other in their life because they're afraid it's going to get flipped back on them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's very common. I mean, that's one of the tactics that narcissists do. They're very good at arguing, and they're
Yes.
very good at causing confusion in the person that they're with. We don't think like narcissists. So because we don't think like narcissists, they come out with things that kind of like just leave you puzzled, and then
Yes.
you're shaking your head and like how did the conversation even go that direction? So
Exactly. Almost like a state of confusion, right? Like that's the goal, is to
it
have
is.
you.
Yeah, they're really good at creating confusion so that you wind up tongue tied, sounding like the blubbering mess that doesn't know what she's talking about or he's talking about.
Right.
And that other person, can just fire at you,
Mm. Like the
constant. And
darts.
it's just, well, how do I even answer this? How do I even, you know, protect myself, so to speak? Because
Yeah.
you wind up feeling, when we feel fear, if we feel like we need protection from someone,
Yes.
we're going to start to feel fear or anxiety, right? So we're going to get anxious. And then when we're anxious, it's very hard to have a clear head because you're not even thinking with the prefrontal cortex anymore. You're lit up
Right.
where you're fired up in the limbic system, and you're just trying
Yeah.
so hard to make a logical statement, but they're not. You can't make a logical statement to counteract this illogical argument that's being thrown at you.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so that what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to, say things that, are going to make you feel like you don't have a leg to stand on. You might have to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, but I think what, our listeners need to know is that you do have a leg to stand on.
Right.
If you can't think of anything else to say when you get confused like that in an argument,
Right.
because you want to have boundaries in an argument, right? I mean, there's certain things. I'm married now 47 years.
Yeah.
My husband and I probably had just about every fight that a couple could have, but it wasn't a narcissistic relationship. It was
Exactly.
just, we got married at 18. We had a lot of childish, we were
Right.
children, so we had a lot of childish arguments. And so, after 47 years, you learn, what will I tolerate in our, moments where we're not in agreement on something. And that's normal. That is normal. I'm not going to name call him and he's not going to name call me. We're not going to yell so loud that, maybe the neighbors are going to hear it too. Like
Right.
we're going to speak to each other respectfully. And that is not part of the game plan for a narcissist. They
Mm.
want to rage, yell, confuse. Like those are places where you need to start with boundaries. Boundaries in an argument, you need to
Right.
start there because if they cannot speak to you respectfully, and if they cannot speak to you in a way where they give you an opportunity to speak
That's
your
right.
mind as well, then that's where I would say the first step is gray rock because you're already aroused. Your anxiety is so high right now. You need
Yes.
to bring yourself back down. Gray rock first. What is gray rock, right? The gray rock
Yeah.
is where you basically just what would you, if I was yelling at a gray rock right now, what would it say back to me? Absolutely nothing, right?
It would just be there. It would just
Yeah.
kind of like,
So you just be there, try to turn it off.
mm-hmm.
And it's hard to do because when someone's yelling at you, that's pretty impossible.
Oh yeah. And
So
maybe not even if they're yelling, because sometimes people have a way of just saying things in a condescending way to belittle you, and
mhm.
that can rattle you. The yelling and that tone of like
Right.
making you feel like you're dumb.
Right. And then in
Mhm.
that moment when they say those things, that now that it also sets you in this thing where you're trying to process what you just heard.
Yes.
You're not
I can't
ready.
believe it.
Yeah, you're not ready to engage. You're processing, is there any truth to that? And that's where also a person that's with the narcissist then starts getting self-doubt, because you do ask those questions, is there any truth to that? And then, you know, you're usually very giving people. Because you're very giving, you're even willing sometimes to take on some blame that doesn't belong to you.
Right.
You have to be careful to not cross over your own boundary of self-respect. Now, the
Mm.
boundary that you have with the narcissist, that one is one that you've, tried to have unsuccessfully. And
Right.
so, and it is going to be unsuccessful. Are there some narcissists that will rein it in and, not yell as loud? And um, there's probably a level of a covert narcissist that will do
Yes.
that. And so,
Right.
if they're reasonable enough, then, you might be able to get a little bit of, you know, understanding to come out of something.
Right.
There'll be more understanding if there's a secondary gain for them. If they're
Right.
understanding, oh, you know what, if I a little bit calmer now, then I will get this out of her or get this out of him. So,
Exactly.
there's always a calculating thing going on. So yeah, but that's one type of boundary, boundaries and arguments.
Yeah. So boundaries of just even maybe things that are in your home or things that you don't want touched or things that you're like, okay, this is belongs to me. This is my space. Maybe it could even be food in the fridge. It could be anything. It could be like your property, your belongings, things that you hold sacred that you don't want touched. And then they just continuously just touch the things, take the things, whether it
Mhm.
be your car, whatever. I mean, don't ask. Just
Right,
like no respect. You
right.
you know,
And the reason for that is
yeah,
because you have a rule about don't touch this,
right,
and they don't like, but that means that they don't have control over that thing.
right.
So now they want control over everything in your life. Here's an example, because I did have this happen with clients years ago. They were married, and he he always, like, she was like she had a nice figure,
Yeah,
and so she would only eat half of her meal at dinner
yeah,
time, at when they would go to a restaurant, and she
right.
would get a
Oh, yeah, to go box. Yep.
box to go. And
Mhm.
she, would say, oh, I love this so good, but so much, but I want it tomorrow because I want it for lunch. He
Yeah,
would eat it before she could, because he knew she wanted it.
yeah.
And so, like, things like that, just things, and of
Mhm.
course, what does that do to her? It makes her feel like, um, my wishes don't matter.
Right.
I'm not respected.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want me to say he can't have something that's
Hmm.
mine. And so, she learned different ways to handle that. When
Right.
he would do that, she would go right back to that same restaurant, get the full meal, and come home with it and begin eating it in front of him. She had her own
Mhm.
ways of dealing with the pain that he was causing her. And that was how she felt she could show him, fine, you don't want to respect what I've asked you to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to get the thing I wanted for lunch today, and I'm going to eat it in front of you. Now, that's just one person's way of dealing with a
Hmm.
lot of years of this kind of thing happening, and finally saying, what do I have control over? Okay, I can't control
Right.
when he does that to me, but I can control if this is what I really want and I'm worth taking care of too. I'm gonna
Well,
go
yeah.
get it. So,
Yeah.
but that created the new rage then, because he saw he did not have the boundary the way he
Yeah.
wanted it. His idea was, no. you want it, I'm going to have it, and you're not going to have it. But she's like,
Right.
no, okay, I'm pushing the boundary back. I'm going to have it,
Right.
and I'm spending more of your money because he worked and she didn't. I'm
Yeah.
going to spend more of your money to go and do it because you couldn't respect the boundary that I had. So, an audience, you might disagree with the wife's reaction to the situation. Maybe,
Yeah.
feel free to comment if you think that
Yeah.
her attitude was wrong. And I'm sure there'll be a mix of opinions on that
Oh,
matter too.
yeah. Well, I would love to have them chime in because things like that happen so often. It's like your property. It's like there's nothing sacred in those relationships. So, another thing that I wanted to touch on with that is the boundaries. And the lady you mentioned, she had been with him for some years. You know, since we're targeting this from a Christian perspective, we don't want to throw away relationships or marriages. We don't ever, push that. But what can a person do if one, they want to stay in that relationship for whatever reason, they feel like there's something there to stay for, and then maybe the person that actually says, hey, I'm not sure how much of this boundary stuff I can take, because it's like it almost seems like they're just intentionally doing things to
Push the boundaries.
so it's like you're trying to rattle me. You're trying to get me off centered. It's like you're constantly trying to take me out of my peace. It's like at some point for some people, they just don't want to continue playing that game and going down that road anymore
Right.
because for a number of reasons. So what are your suggestions for that?
Um, well, I mean, like we said, we're from a Christian perspective, right? So
Yeah.
we're not going to ever say divorce, but those are one of the ones we've talked about it a lot where separation is necessary.
Right.
And the separation is to hopefully get the narcissist to back down and be compliant with some boundaries that you're trying to state. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes that's when the person that's with the narcissist realized there was no love in this at all because they could care less. They're just
Right.
moving on to the next one. So, and then when you have kids that, it's a risk because if you have kids and you pull out that card, they might be like, okay, fine. But now you're dealing with, your kids in a broken home. And so there's a
Yeah.
lot. And then also if you don't work and he's been controlling or she's been controlling the money and you've been the one that's home, whoever it is that's controlling the money, if that is the case, they have the upper hand in that kind of situation. And in most cases, the narcissist is the one controlling the money, not the other way around.
Yeah, usually, yeah, that's what I was going to say. They usually are the ones that are the financial breadwinner, in the family,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't have it any other way, so a lot of women I know they kind of like the idea of staying at home, and they want to, the person may say, oh, this is beneficial for the family, or it's another way to isolate, it's another way to control. They know where you are. They know what you're doing. They, you know what I mean? You don't have access to anyone, to isolation. So what should women be mindful of and even some men that may fall into that category as well?
If they should happen to leave you or whatever, they're putting you in a place where they make it hard for you to leave them. So,
Of
um,
course. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So what do you do? I would say it's helpful if you have family that can take you in because they're
Hmm.
also going to say, fine, you could separate, but you're going to be on your own. You haven't worked a day in your life, and so there'll be insult upon insult, and how you can't take care of yourself, and them trying to
Yeah.
paint this picture, a very dreary picture for you of what your life's going to be like without them, because you can't possibly live without them, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's the lie that they feed you, and they do so well in breaking you down mentally and emotionally to make you believe that lie. Um,
Right.
and the danger with the narcissist is that the boundaries, like we were talking about before, they hate the boundaries. Like you may want to go out with your friends, or you may want to go out with your family, go out, to do whatever, dinner, maybe go out to, maybe there's an activity with your church, members that you want to go to, anything. And then they just kind of make this it's almost like this spectacle, this like this whole argument, this whole thing, a scene really, just to kind of get you to not go. And it's like that's a boundary that they keep pushing. So every time you want to go out, then they try to create this whole, oh my gosh, it's just like almost like an explosion,
Mhm.
that they're having an arguments and screaming and going back and forth and saying what you're not doing and what you are and what you're not. What do you do to get around that? Because part of the way how they get you is they kind of separate you from everyone, and they ruin all your relationships, and they get in between and cause a wedge, so that maybe you can't escape. That's what it is, so that you can't leave whenever the time comes to you, because you've burned all your bridges.
You burned all your bridges and you also have a lot of self-doubt. So
Yes.
you start to just, you can succumb to their tactics because you start to believe they're right. They must be right. They're the ones with this full life, with friends, with a job, with they've got money. And look at me, I'm just a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home mom. I'm just
Mhm.
this worthless person is basically what you start to believe about yourself. And so you first have to get to the point where you surround yourself again with people from the
Yes.
outside. You know,
Yeah.
you talk to your parents, your siblings, your the people that, this person may have been very successful at separating you from and making you look at all of their flaws as these
Mhm.
extreme problems that you don't even need them in your life. And so that kind of stuff will happen. They'll be very good if they have a close relationship with any of the people in their family. They'll
Right.
make sure that those family relationships are always flourishing and the way that they want them. But your family relationships have kind of fizzled out, and sadly, you know a lot of times, because of the hurt that's been caused to those family members by your person, they don't want anything to do with you because you bought into that. So now
Right.
it might take some apologies on your part to say, I know I'm in a relationship with a narcissist. I know that I'm so sorry that I've allowed our relationship to go sour because of them. And I just ask that you would give me another chance. I'm trying to figure out how to gradually work my way to life without that person. And
Right.
I know they're going to make it really difficult for me. They did a good job of, isolating me from everybody that I love. And,
Mhm.
but in the process, I've learned that I'm also not loved by that person. So now, because I know that person doesn't know how to love.
Mhm.
I have made some big mistakes and I'm trying to work through that, but I need your help to get there. So you want to have a support system again around you before you even
Yes.
make any attempts. You need to make sure there are people that know what you're trying to do, so
Right.
that you are not alone in this, and people that will check on you, because make sure that you're safe. The thing that I always try to tell people when I know that they're trying to make a break, I'm like, please make sure that you are not keeping this information to yourself. It may not be in your mind that you want to gain freedom on a permanent basis. It might be, I just need this separation so they know that I mean business.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in most cases, people that leave that relationship and eventually come back to it because they were love bombed enough that they've drawn back to it,
Yeah.
they usually find out that that person has not changed. Um,
Yeah.
so, but, this is a process that you've got to learn.
You
And
got them. Yeah, you have to. And Karen, I can speak to that because I know that when I was going through mine, my last relationship, and it was very toxic and very narcissistic type of person. And there was a level of shame in a way on my end, even though I really didn't do anything really to cause that shame. But it's like the almost embarrassment of like your marriage is falling apart, the relationship's ending, and you're trying to save face, but at the same time you're hurting inside and you're in a lot of pain, and a lot of things are going on. And I think I just had to get to a point where I had to humble myself. I had to swallow my pride and say, you know what? I got to at least let one person know, or at least a couple people know what's going on. It does take a lot in that beginning phase when you realize that you're like, this cannot go on anymore. You got to start letting people know what's happening so they can kind of put the pieces together as to, okay, I see what's happening. I see what's going on.
Yeah,
Mending those relationships so you can have that safe space and that, you never know that place where you may have to run to, who knows, in the next few months in case things really go south
exactly.
quick. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you have children, then, they get legal help to make the decision if there's children involved, because you don't want to leave with children and then be blamed for kidnapping. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to be careful how you proceed if children are involved. If it's just you just go. And I'd say
Yeah.
they haven't listened to your boundaries and respected you enough, and they're still raging at you and doing all the things, whatever they are. Then I would say you just go and you leave a note or don't leave a note, whatever you feel led to do. But um, yeah, it's a hard thing though. The more involved the relationship is, like children, and you're depending on the finances and all that, it makes it stickier but and harder to do, but not impossible. People have to do
Yeah.
it all the time, but you have to make choices that are going to be safe for you, safe for kids, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Safe. And then there are agencies out there, and that's the thing that I also want to stress. I'm glad that you're watching the podcast. Remember, share your, stories with us. We'd love to hear about it and speak to whatever you want to hear more about. But there are agencies out there where you can let them know what's going on. Maybe it may not be a family member you feel quite ready yet, but at least consult with someone. They have like domestic violence, places, shelters, and organizations that help battered, and it's not always women but men too that are in a situation where they're
Absolutely.
being emotionally, physically, or whatever type of abuse that's happening, and they can help you to safely exit if that is the route you want to go. uh,
Yes.
and that is, and like you said, it's not about doing things on your own, because remember, in your mind, right, you're not even thinking straight anyway. That person has degraded you, belittled you to the point where you don't even have confidence in your own
No,
abilities and thoughts.
no, you don't. You don't.
You don't need to be planning stuff on your own. Like, you need to have a thinking partner, and preferably more of them doing the thinking, because they have, a system, and they know they've gotten other women out and men out of those, situations, and they can help you strategically plan that.
Yeah.
But, I just always want to put that out there, because I don't know how often we say that, but I just want to make sure people know, like, there are places you can go to, organizations, nonprofits, that there are places there.
Right. Very
Yeah.
good. Yes, good,
Yeah.
good to mention that. So, yeah, if you're in any kind of a domestic violence situation, that's definitely one that you want to leave. You don't want to give time to that. You want to do something right away.
Do something. Yeah. Yeah. Protect yourself, protect your kids if you have them.
Yes.
Um, and whatever it is you have to do. So, Karen, this has just been amazing. I'm so glad we touched on this topic with boundaries, because we are so, and sometimes depending on your personality, you want to be so accommodating, but there is nothing wrong with you setting a boundary and saying, this is how far this goes. I'm not going to accept this past this point. And you have a right to be able to say that. So
Absolutely.
what final words do you want to give our viewers about, just, boundaries? Maybe people who struggle with, even some people are struggling even to put a boundary in place. Some people will do it and then they're having problems with the person pushing the boundary. But there are some people who have problems just making a boundary and like even doing that in and of itself, because they're such a people pleaser. So what would you say
Right.
to that?
Right. A more meek character,
Meek, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I
very.
mean, we're
Mhm.
supposed to be, as Christians, we're supposed to be meek, right? Um,
Yeah.
but the more meek you are, the more narcissist bait you are too,
Oh yeah,
which
they love y'all.
which is part of why it got you where you are.
They love the meek people that they can take advantage of.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, I mean, if you're not very good at putting together, um, you know, safety for yourself and mental, whether it's mental or physical, then I think you just need a support group of people that are going to help you. It might even mean it like an intervention kind of a situation. I have one situation where three people showed up at the house when the wife was ready to leave, and they were
Mm.
there, and he was not happy about it, but he knew he had no way of retaliating with her at that moment because there was too many witnesses. So
Right.
he let her go. And, with her suitcases packed in the garage, she took them out. He didn't know she had packed everything that she wanted. She said,
Wow.
everything's yours. I need nothing from you. And she left. So that, it's amazing because then, time has gone by and I happen to know that she went back there, but I'm sure he love bombed her and cried and did everything he had to do. So you have to get really strong when you're meek, and because she's back in that same situation again. So you have to get very strong when you're meek. You have to realize I have to keep people around me and I have to listen to them because they know the story now. They've helped me and they didn't help me do all of that for me to go back for more of it.
Yeah, and to go back for more. And I feel like it's worse when you go back. It's
Absolutely.
like, oh, it's going to get a little bit better.
Right.
100%. 100%. Y'all hear me? It's going to get worse.
Right.
That's
if it's a true narcissist. If it's a true narcissist, yeah.
True narcissist, it will get worse. It won't get better.
Yeah.
The love bombing, once they know they got you, that's going to end. They're going to go right back to their ways, and they're going to even go 10 times harder.
Yeah, because they say to themselves, oh, they can't live without me. Okay, I got them now. And so, they'll be good for a week or two, but then they'll start to show the same old things. And you're going to be like, your head will be spinning. And now, because you did that, it's so much harder to go to those other people and ask them for help again.
Yeah, because I'm just saying, if I was one of those people, I don't know if I'll help you again. I'm just saying, Karen, I don't know. Just being real. That's just me.
I know. But, yeah, you put yourself out there to help like that, and then this person, is so meek and weak. I see it as a weakness too. That's something where you got to pray, Lord, help me to continue to be meek, but not weak.
But not weak. I like that. Meek, but not weak.
Yeah,
I love that. And you got to get strong. You got to, you got to get your mind strong. You got to do things to, I don't know. It's like something within you. You got to have a good group. I don't know if you're in a church or not. I'm just going to say that that's probably one of the best places where you're going to find some people where they actually have groups set up, small groups where you can actually engage in those groups and meet people, and then they can help sharpen your mindset. And don't be afraid to share. Don't overshare. You have to use wisdom in who you're sharing things with, because not everyone's a safe person. But you do need to some degree, let some people know kind of your situation and what's going on. And, the people that are in tune with the Holy Spirit, they'll be able to pick up, what you're throwing out there, and, and pull you to the side, and or you can pull the person you feel closest to the side to talk more about it. But, but yeah, there's gotta be a mental shift, like a mindset shift that happens within you, because you have to do that. That narcissist is not going to do it for you. You're going to have to do it. So that's going to take some work. But Karen, that was awesome. That was so great. So remember, we want to hear from you. Don't stay quiet. Make sure you share this. Make sure you're commenting and reaching out to us. Let us know, how this is helping you, or how this is helping your friends that you're sharing this with. And we want to make sure we're spreading the word as far as we can. So let people know if they haven't been listening to you and it feels like you've been talking to a brick wall about a situation that's exactly like what we're talking about. Just feel free to share the podcast. Maybe they'll hear one of us and hear both of us and receive what we're saying and start to make the changes, or at least be more receptive to what you're saying, right? So thank you so much for tuning in. We love hearing from you. We're so appreciative of you as our viewers. This is Narcissist, I'm Asking for a Friend podcast. I'm Tyler King. This is Karen Maldonado, my co-host, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Yes. Bye-bye.